can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side. See, life's like a beach if you find the sand. And right now, I feel like 100 grand.
You are listening to Inspired Insider with your host, Dr. Jeremy Wise.
Dr. Jeremy Wise here, founder of InspiredInsider.com, where I talk with inspirational entrepreneurs like the founders of P90X, Atari, many more, and how they overcome big challenges in life and business. Our sponsor today is Rise25.com, which helps service professionals, doctors, lawyers, accountants, coaches create additional revenue streams. Stop trading time for dollars. We hold you accountable to your biggest goals with a step-by-step roadmap. Check out Rise25.com. It's run by myself and co-founder John Corcoran. It's application only. Today, I'm very excited. I've been hearing this name for years and years and this company for years and years. Joe Barton. He's founder of Barton Publishing. It's one of the top digital publishers of natural health solutions and home remedies with over 1 million books sold. It includes the best-selling diabetes solution kit, the flagship natural health newsletter Home Cures at Work, and the publisher of Wholetones Healing Frequency music. And Joe was a former accountant who founded Barton Publishing in 2004 from, I love the description, Joe, is from a tiny basement office, no windows, probably no light from the outside world, on a farm in the middle of Minnesota.
Right.
Right, Joe?
10 square feet.
10 square feet. Can you even fit in a
6x7? So
can you even fit in a 10 square feet room?
Yeah, it's very narrow. Like it's literally 6 foot by 7 foot, I think. And I had whiteboards in there, and I had a corner desk, and that was it. So
take me back. I want to go back to 2004 in that tiny office. What was going on in your world?
So I was, just kind of transitioning from my career as a CPA, doing taxes and financial statements and things like that, and dabbling in this internet marketing business that was just kind of like Wild West. So I was, I had different websites like getridofladybugs.com.
Get rid of ladybugs.
Yep.
What did that do?
So living on a farm, a lot of farmhouses get invaded by these Asian lady beetles.
Really?
After soybean crops are harvested, because the lady beetles were brought in by the government to control the aphid population, apparently, and then the soybeans get harvested, and they look for a place to winter, and farmhouses are nice and cozy, and so I came up with a report to help people get rid of them. So, yeah,
that's a crazy niche.
Yeah, and that's kind of what got me started. Like, I was studying, find a problem and provide a solution, and that was like the first problem that I came up with that I could probably help solve. So I just,
What was was the farm experiencing that problem?
Yeah. Our house. I came home from work one day in early October, and it happened every year, but I had never thought of it as an opportunity. I always thought of it as a nuisance. But I'm like, this happens at my mom's house and other people's house, so I'm sure other people would want to get rid of these things, because our house was just covered with them like one day after. Yeah.
No idea. So does that site still exist out there? What was the domain?
Yeah, getridofladybugs.com. You can still buy the Ladybug.
Do you still own it?
Oh, yeah.
Really?
Sell like 3 copies a year. So
it pays for the hosting.
Right.
Getridofladybugs.com. So were you at that time, when you say transitioning, were you still working as a CPA? You were?
Yeah, for 2004, that whole year, I launched Ladybugs in October of 2003, and then I started kind of replicating the model with kidney stones, getridofkidneystones.com, get rid of gallstones, UTI reports. So I kind of duplicated the model over and over, selling these ebooks that help solve these problems. And then refluxremedy.com was the one that put me over the edge, and so by the end of 2004, I was making 3 times more in my ebook business than I was as a CPA. So it wasn't a hard decision to quit my job and do that full time.
That's amazing. So, what made you start dabbling in it?
So my wife and I, we have 4 boys right now, and she was working full time. I was working full time, and after our second boy was born, they were both going to daycare, and we just had like one of our goals was for her to stay home with the boys and not to send them to daycare. So
Right.
we took a step of faith and said, well, she'll stay home with them, and we'll make this work. So we just really went on a strict budget, and even on a strict budget, I think I was making like $36,000 a year at the time, and raising a young family. We had a new house on the farm, and
It's a lot.
yeah, so it was pretty tight. So I needed to make some extra money, and that's when I just started looking for other things, and actually selling stuff on eBay was where I found the concept of people selling ebooks. And I started dabbling with that, made a couple $100 a month, and then I learned you can have your own website, buy Google Ads from AdWords, and just kind of kept rolling it that way.
That's amazing. So it all started with getridofladybugs.com. Who would have known? But
Yeah.
you have a personal, health, like it seems random, right? A CPA talking about, kidney stones, UTI, but it started when you were a teenager. You told your parents you would help tell the world about an apple remedy that saved your dad's life. What's this apple remedy? Talk about that.
So yeah, my dad, when I was 3 years old, my dad went into the hospital for surgery for an ulcer, and I think it was caused by stress or whatever. And at the time, that was what they did for ulcers, is surgery. They don't do that anymore, but somewhere in the surgery they botched it a bit. They cut into like something as lining, and it produced like a leak of bile into his stomach, and so every night he would have just bad bile reflux. And
That's horrible.
yeah, and there was really nothing that he tried that worked, different medications, propping his bed up at night, various things like that. So 10 years he suffered with this, and then he just like realized one night after sleeping through the night for the first time in years, he traced back, well, what did I do differently? And he said the only thing different was eating an apple before bed that night. So he tried it again, and as long as he ate an apple before bed, an apple a day keeps the doctor away, they say, and that was true. So my mom said, oh man, we've found, this is $1 million idea here. So she wrote some letters, and this is like total blue collar family. We don't know how the world works at the time, and so she wrote some letters to some big pharmaceutical companies and said, hey, we've got the cure for acid reflux, and it involves a secret food ingredient or whatever, and we'll be happy.
She was a master copywriter. She was already writing letters.
And she actually did get a response from one of them, which is surprising.
What'd they say?
Well, they basically said, thanks for your letter, but unfortunately, we can't patent a natural food substance, so it's really nothing we're interested in, which I don't know. I never actually remember reading the letter. That's just the story that I was told. Right. But somewhere in there, it gets a little fuzzy, but it's like, well, someday we'll tell the world about this, and,
And you were thinking that from a young age because you saw your dad go through that?
Yeah, not consciously, but subconsciously thinking about it, I guess. More after the fact. I remember us talking about that, and then 15 years later, or probably close to 20 years later, then refluxremedy.com was born, and now if you search remedy for acid reflux on Google, you'll see Apple come up, whereas before it never was popular. So I kind of feel like that was a contribution that we made to all of society, that less people are suffering from that now. So
that's amazing.
Yeah.
Joe, I love that. So growing up, were you having to help maintain a farm? What was it like?
My wife grew up on a farm, so I just kind of lived in the suburb of the Twin Cities.
Yeah.
And, so
you're representing with all the Minnesota hockey gear there.
Right. Yeah. I'm a big Vikings fan, Minnesota Wild fan. So, yeah, my wife's a farmer, so that's how we ended up living on the farm. So, yeah.
So right now, what was the process for you to create products? So you start with the Ladybugs, right? But then you branched off to a lot of health stuff. So what was your process?
Really, in my background wasn't in health. My mom was always kind of dabbling in natural remedies and different things like that. She was kind of like your grandma with the old folk remedies type of thing, and so that's what kind of. And she called me one day after the Ladybug site was up, and she's like, "Joe, I just went to the chiropractor, and he told me about this crazy remedy for dissolving kidney stones. I drink a 6-pack of Coca-Cola and pureed asparagus." What? So that's I did some research, and I found that remedy listed on some like
Is that an actual remedy? Like, is that true?
yeah, it's like this old remedy.
Pureed asparagus with it?
Pureed asparagus, yeah. And apparently, like the Coke isn't that big of a deal. It's more the amount of liquid that just comes in and it like rushes your kidneys, and then the asparagus is a diuretic that flushes it out. So I do think there's something there with the Coke that helps like to reduce the sharp edges of a kidney stone. Because if you look at a kidney stone, they're like this massive sharp glass ball inside you that you can just imagine how painful that would be. So, but
I've definitely seen videos of like Coke eroding, like just eating away at nails or something. So I'm sure it can take out a kidney stone, no problem.
Right. Yeah, exactly. So, and the cool thing is, like a couple years later, I met Dr. Scott Saunders, kind of a randomly. I don't believe in coincidence, but we sat down for breakfast at a marketing conference and we hit it off, and he ended up becoming like our chief medical officer for the company, and he said like, yeah, I use that remedy with my own patients and it works great. So he kind of put the validation and credibility to all these remedies that we were putting out there. So there was a couple of years I was just like, it's working, we're getting good feedback, put it out there, and didn't really have a whole lot of legal compliance concerns at the time. So
So what was the decision? Were you looking for someone at the time, or you just met Dr. Scott and you're like, this is a perfect fit?
Yeah, I wasn't looking actively. We just happened to go to Eben Pagan's Get Altitude conference and sat down for breakfast, and he was looking for help with marketing and business, and I was looking for a doctor to help give some credibility to what we were doing. So we partnered together basically. So
when you have someone come on board like that, what do you have them do?
So in his case, his is a little different because he was, practicing at a clinic and had his own business and that type of thing. So what we agreed to do is he was going to write a couple articles this came a year and a half later, but he started writing a monthly article for us that just talked about topic of the month, whatever that might be, with home cures that work. And now we've had, I think, 100 issues now since January 2009. And then we use him, so it's more of like a licensing agreement, sort of, to use his name and picture and story on our websites. So I got some advice from Perry Belcher in that regard, actually, because Perry went through some legal nightmares where I won't throw him under the bus. We'll just say he said, Joe, just make sure you use a real doctor and hire somebody. So
yeah. And so how do you decide which one to go next? Like, so you obviously, I could see the acid reflux one and because that helped your dad. And how do you decide
which product?
Yeah.
Some of it was market research, like just going to Google and looking up like how many people are suffering with various things and that, going to Barnes and Noble, checking out magazine racks, that type of thing. So not a real scientific process necessarily, but just kind of good old, market research, putting something out there, seeing if it gets traction, and if it does, you scale it. So that's kind of what we did with diabetes, because I didn't really have a great story necessarily for our diabetes product, but I knew it was a huge market. It was a growing market of, and a pretty serious problem for people that, can die
very
from
serious,
it. So, yeah. And high blood pressure was the same thing, just a big market for it. So we just put our heads together and came up with the product and put the copy together and worked really well. So
how do you decide, Joe, on the medium, like an ebook opposed to like an audio as opposed to a video? How do you decide on that?
Well, the ebook was the simplest one just because it's a digital file. There's no cost to fulfill it other than hosting on a website. You can deliver the link through email, so it's all very automated, and that was a big part of why I love this business model, was because I could set something up once and it would just continually sell all through the night and that. So, and then shortly thereafter, I partnered with a guy who offered the printed version of all of our products and offered that as an option, and found out that 50% of our customers wanted both, the digital download and the physical copy.
Right.
And we continue to see that even, 10, 12 years later, that it seems like the printed book isn't going to go away anytime soon, that I'm seeing. So
is there demand for like audio or anything like that, or not really?
a little bit. I mean, I think with ours, it's more like, we've got like recipes or, here's your step-by-step thing. And so to have that in front of you, to hold in front of you, and I think is valuable.
So they can follow it.
Yeah. Audiobook we do have some books with audio, but it really hasn't taken off much at all.
So talk about the birth of Wholetones.
Yeah,
how did that come about? Michael Tyrrell and Wholetones.
Yep. Yeah, so Wholetones, Michael is a real good friend of mine that we met about 8 or 9 years ago now, and he used to be like a traveling minister, preacher, church guy. He played guitar in the Christian rock band Mylon Lefebvre and the Broken Hearts, and that was the biggest one, I think, and some other ones. And so he's just a really talented musician and a super huge heart for people and for the kingdom of God, and that was his passion. And he also had like this, when I first met him, he knew what I did with health, and so he's telling me about all these different weird alternative health ventures that he's been on in his life, talking about Tesla coils and hyperbaric oxygen and all sorts of just different, backdoor kind of, health people that he knew that were helping people with all sorts of things. And so, and then just, as our friendship grew, he was telling me about how he'd been studying the Psalms and the song of David, back in Bible days, and the story how he met this piano player in a Jerusalem coffee shop, and basically was handed like the key to...
Right, yeah, he's told me the story that it was like a random occurrence at a Jerusalem coffee shop.
Right, yeah. And so I didn't really know what he was talking about. Like, he was like saying, like, I've got whatever, this is going to help heal the world and all this. And so we were actually at an event in New Orleans in 2014, February. And I said, okay, Michael, whatever this is, what's it going to take to actually get it done and get it out there and to help the world? And so he's like, oh, that's easy. We just need to, rent a studio for a week or two and hire a few musicians. I got friends that, all these musicians, and that's it. Just get me in the studio. And I'm like, okay, so what's it going to cost? And, I penciled it out. It really wasn't much at all. And I'm like, all right, let's do it. It's just kind of like, let's get this done. And for me, it's like more out of curiosity, and I was willing to use that thing.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
What intrigued you about it? What was... It's
passion,
sort of like metaphysical, right? Like you can't, like you're so used to, okay, there's diabetes, there's a problem, there's diabetes, there's a solution. This seems a little more esoteric.
It's a little woo-woo, I guess.
Yeah, so what attracted you to it? Yeah.
Just knowing Michael, I would say, and the genuineness of him, and knowing that there was something there to it. But I just kind of sensed like God put us together for a reason, so that my strengths and giftings could be matched with his, and that together we could maybe make something work. So it was really just kind of a risk, like a step of faith again. And so I said, all right, let's do it. I wrote the check. He booked a studio in Dallas, got his people together, and you heard the story. They sat down in the studio. He said, all right, drummer, you do this. A violinist, you do this. Keyboard, do this. I'm going to do this, and let's see what happens. And like first take, 22 minutes, 22 seconds, song ends, and they just like sat there and like, couldn't believe what happened. And so it all came together. And so they just did all 7 songs in 7 different frequencies, and it was done in a week. He sent me an MP3 download of the songs, and I played it on my living room, stereo system for the first time, and I just pushed play, and I'm like, all right, here we go. What did I invest all this money for? Let's see, and a little skeptical. And but then I pushed play, and I just like got this flood of emotion came over me. Like I could feel there was something in that music that was just powerful and healing and cleansing, and so I was just like floored. And I'm like, all right. And it took me like, even my team, like Marty, you talked to Marty, he was a skeptic at first. He's like, Joe, what are you getting us into?
Isn't he a part of the Skeptic Society? Or
yeah.
I mean, he's like actually an official skeptic.
Oh, really? I don't know about that.
Or no, sorry, someone in his mastermind group is
Yeah,
like
I think it is.
as part of the Skeptics Association.
Yep.
Yeah.
So that might have rubbed off on him a little bit, and I was, as well. I didn't know what I was getting into, but
It's
so
good
I
to
think
have some skepticism.
yeah,
You look at it with a more
skepticism.
careful eye, I guess.
Right. So we just went, full speed ahead. Like, let's get this produced. And in October, he had a live event and launched it in Orlando. And then on Black Friday, November, we launched it online to our list. And the sales were unbelievable at first. Like, one of the best launches we've ever done.
Wow.
For any product, not just our own. And then we started getting feedback from customers, and like that's when we realized, wow, we're really onto something, because just huge miraculous stories from like physical healings and all sorts of things like that, but more common was like the emotional healing, stress relief, just a sense of peace, people saying like they feel like they're in touch with God again.
Wow.
And getting out of depression and funks and things like that, and it just continued to come in like every day. We share testimonials with our team now, just to kind of remind us of why we're doing this, and just to celebrate a little bit of the bigger purpose of it. So it's not just because we're making money in that, but we're actually making a big difference in people's lives,
Yeah.
and a lot of people's lives. So
Yeah. If people want the full, like, longer version of the story, they should probably on Inspired Insider just check out or search Michael Tyrrell's name, Tyrrell, I think it's spelled, and that will tell like actually some more details of the Wholetones. I'm curious, Joe, from your standpoint, I would think it'd be hard to sell something like this, because it's not like a problem solution. Why do you think it was one of the biggest launches? How do you structure it so people understand like what it is, so that they get it, right?
Right. On our website, people can listen to the samples of the music. It's 1.5 minute long samples of 7 different songs. So, and that combined with the story of Michael's journey, and then also seeing the testimonials from other people, relating it to all sorts of different things. And I think people just put it all together and decide, like, I want this, I need this,
Right.
And, yeah.
Where can people check it out?
Wholetones.com.
Okay.
It's WHOLETONES.
Okay.
Yep.
There is also, there are Wholetones, and then there's, you go to like store.bartonpublishing.com. They could find
I think on Wholetones.com, the store is linked up top.
Okay.
Different things.
Nice.
Also, we're on Amazon. We actually sell quite a bit on Amazon every day, which
Really?
It's kind of become, I think it's rated #1 in the new age relaxation.
That's amazing.
3 or 4 different categories for that. So
That's unbelievable.
Charted on Billboard. I think we were #3 on Billboard New Age chart for on Christmas time, and when we launched our Lullabies CD. So that was pretty cool.
Yeah.
Like,
so the Lullabies.
Yep.
That was a decision too, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So what made you release the Lullabies version?
So that was, we heard a lot of people saying that Wholetones helped them sleep, but then other people would say like some of the drums would startle them and they'd wake up in the middle of the night. So it's like, could you please make a version that doesn't have the drums? And so Michael's like, oh, sure, no problem. Well, and he just went into the studio about, when was that, April of last year, I think, and recorded, a whole new set of 6 new songs, 30 minutes each, and all lullabies, and so it's focused for sleep, really.
That's really cool. I want to talk about, what's really important, and I gather this from talking to Marty, talking to Michael, and to you, is, core values are really a way you run your life and your company. And you were talking, before we got started, is you've tweaked some of them.
Yep.
Talk about original and then the tweaking.
Yeah. So Marty was actually kind of the champion of this. I think so. Core values are really just something that is core to who you are and will never change. They're just a matter of identifying them and then using those as kind of like your North Star or your guiding, like, for making decisions. And so our original 7 were honor God, help people, practice what we preach, be fruitful and multiply, which was, in each of these I can explain more, and I have through interview, but over deliver, make it fun, and simplify. And those were just kind of like, as we talked about them, like, yeah, this is who we are. This is kind of what separates us from everybody else, and we do make decisions based on those things. And so, and then, like you said, we did change those recently, which we could get into a little bit more if you wanted.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
So we're going.
I guess before you talk about the tweaking,
yeah,
did you just do these things and one day you're like, we should really figure out and define them, or did you do that from the beginning?
No, it wasn't from the beginning. It evolved over time, I'd say. And Marty, again, was kind of the champion of like getting this onto our website and doing that interview that we did together. And so we just sat and talked kind of like you and I are doing, and recorded it, talked about each one, and then we would incorporate that on our team, like our weekly meetings with the team, or daily huddle calls even. Like somebody would say, how did you practice core value today? And they would share, like I made my wife a sandwich and or something.
No, it's good though, because most people, it's like on there, sometimes it's on pages as a placeholder and it doesn't get discussed on a daily or weekly basis. It's not top of mind,
Right, yeah. So that helped a lot. So, but like we get, we've got a pretty big email list, and so a lot of people with products come to us and say, hey, we want you to promote this. And it's like, well, yeah, you and everyone else. So what differentiates it? Why should we promote your product? And so we look at, does it work? Do you have proof of it? And does it align with our core values? Does it really help people? Or is it just the next latest, greatest thing that's going to make us, a lot of money? Because that, you notice that one of our core values isn't to make a lot of money. It was to be fruitful and multiply, which is a component of that, because without a profitable business, you can't do what you're doing to help people. So, but we don't just promote things because it's going to make us money. So,
yeah, you're in it for the long haul.
Yeah.
Yeah. So what's been tweaked?
So we went through a process recently through this. We're doing what's called Traction. It's an entrepreneur's operating system, EOS. It's based on a book by Gino
Wickman. Yeah, they have a rocket fuel. I think he has rocket fuel, which is great in Traction. Yeah.
Yep. So we've been implementing that for the last 6 months or so, and
nice.
Part of the process is going through your core values, and we were like, we're good. We got our core values, and he's like, well, let's just for fun, let's go through these and talk about them. And so the exercise that they have you do is they say, pick 3 people from your company, like the top 3, A-player stars that you just, if you had 100 of those people, you could do, you could conquer the world with.
Right.
And then, so we identified them, named them and put them on the board. And then, next part is, what is it about those people what characteristics do they have that, sets them apart? And then we list all the different things, and then we all that's up on the whiteboard, and then we refine it down, and it's these bullet points. And we realized that some of our previous core values were more aspirational, and some of them were also like more permission to play. Like you don't have to necessarily say you have to have integrity as a core value, because that's just like, you can't even enter the conversation.
Right.
Of integrity.
That's like an assumption.
Right. Yeah. So we got rid of a couple and we tweaked a couple based on that. So our new ones are we kept the honor God. We changed it a little bit to basically be like having a kingdom mindset, like a higher purpose. So
I like that. So do you call it like the kingdom mindset?
Yeah, I call it the kingdom mindset.
That's your new book when it comes out. Your biography.
Right, it could be.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, and which is, it kind of puts honor God in a little bit more perspective. Like like when Jesus came, he didn't come to, he came for a lot of different reasons, but the main thing when you look at the Bible, Jesus came and preached the kingdom of God. And the good news is that there is a kingdom of God and that we all can be a part of it. And it's like, so, that's kind of what that...
It almost gives it like a broader approach.
Yeah,
I like that.
And so the next one was help people, kept that one the same. The third one was interesting. It's GSDR, which stands for Get Stuff Done Right. And that's when we looked at our people, we realized, like, these people, they just get stuff done and they get it right, and we just realized, like, that's a big part of what we love about what we want in our team is not, well, and this ties in with the next one. I haven't finalized what we call it. It currently is positude, which is a new word, but it envelops fun, positive attitude, low drama, that type of thing, and just like having fun again. And that's just like get stuff done, have fun, low drama, like just knock stuff out, having a good time together. Yeah. And our last one was win. I have to look over to my whiteboard over there because I forget. But win, like, that's actually like one of the reasons that I get up in the mornings, just because I like to compete and to try new things and see what's working. And that comes into all sorts of different areas, like split testing our marketing offers and improving, constant improvement of personally and professionally and business wise and that. So
wins, like, people they just want to be in the arena and compete. Right.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So, and they say you shouldn't have more than 5 core values because, you could have a list a lot more, but it's better for messaging to boil it down to 3
Do you have 5?
We have 5.
Or 7. Okay. So
we used to have 7, now we have 5. We quit at win.
Yeah,
because we added simplify to our old list, but by adding one, you're like not simplifying. So,
like, the very thing we put on our list is not allowing us to do that. Yeah, because I think on the original video, like, you guys do a really long, really nice video on the core values, you and Marty. And one of the reasons is 7. You chose 7 for a reason, though, originally. Like, they tell you to boil it down to 5, but you chose 7 for a reason, right?
Yeah, 7, is maybe a more spiritual / biblical number. It's like how many days in a week and how many days of creation, that type of thing. But, you had to cut simplify out. Yeah, it wasn't that big of a deal to keep it at 7. So
yeah, I love that. No, it's really interesting how you have a successful company, but you're always improving, you're always tweaking and trying to make it better, even from the core values component.
Sometimes that gets me into trouble as you try to improve something that might be a sinking ship. So polishing the deck of Titanic, but it's a process of
that happens.
What to improve and what to get rid of and things like that. So
the other part we talked about, Joe, was the systems. Like, the part about the traction is not just you tweaked the core values, but you're really heavily focused on the systems. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Sure. Yeah. So part of the traction system is I'm going to bring it up so I can reference it.
Yeah.
And I won't be completely making
flying by the seat.
Top of my head, but
it's stuff you're doing regardless. I'm really curious because this is like, the non-sexy stuff that actually makes things work and makes things so that you can focus on other things or improve other things because you have those systems in place. So that's why I'm really interested to hearing your take on this.
Yeah, so it's really it's a system of like planning what you're going to be working on, discovering or talking about what your issues are and putting those down on paper so that you can get them out of your brain. A lot of entrepreneurs struggle with, they got a million things going on in their head and it's taking up valuable real estate in there. And so just to be able to write it down and know that I'll get to this eventually, and we'll
just
talk
get it
about
out.
Yep, get it out. So one of the key things for us that we've found with the system is they call the level 10 meeting. And you can go to their website or YouTube and just L10 meetings EOS and learn more about this. But it's a weekly meeting with your management team. where you talk, you set a specific start time and a specific end time, and you have to start and end on time. You've got the first 30 minutes is like 6 different sections where you're talking about personally share some good news. You just little camaraderie, everybody kind of getting on the same page, and then you talk about the numbers scorecard. You see, each person will have 2 key metrics in their business that they're accountable for, and those are the numbers that you just say, are they on track or off track? If they're off track, then you might want to move that down to an issue for discussion later. But you just move right down the list, and and it takes time to come up with what those key metrics are. But eventually,
once you hone them in, that's probably like the most important thing you could do, right?
Yeah. Right. Yeah.
Is it hard to, like, what would be an example of a key metric?
So for me, I've got one of them is top line revenue. So it's like I kind of know where we need to be at.
No pressure.
Yeah.
No. You're in charge of top line revenue.
Right. Yeah. And I'm the owner of the company, so like I don't have a lot of day-to-day type of things that I need to be focused on too much. But and then another key number that I have, which is I've never heard of anyone else doing this before, but so through this system I hired a president to run the company, and they call it an integrator, which is what that Rocket Fuel book talks about.
Fantastic book, yeah.
Yeah.
Would you say, so when you did the score, were you a visionary then?
I'm a visionary, yeah.
Because I don't know, from looking at everything you've done, it almost feels like you could be an integrator also, but
so
you're not.
I'm a rare breed in that I'm both, and I think part of it was because I had to be both, and so, and I was...
It's not your natural way.
Yeah. So like when I started my business, I was happy as a clam, working on my own, running the whole business myself. I didn't have to manage people or hire, fire, that type of thing.
Yeah.
Then as the business grows, or, like you can't keep up with everything, then you have to hire people. And that's when I realized, like, I'm good at it. People like me as a to work for and that, but I didn't love managing people because I'm kind of a softie when it comes to holding other people accountable, and like if somebody doesn't do what they said they were going to do, I'm a little too soft, and so that was more of a discovery process recently for me to realize, like, I'm kind of good cop, and you need a bad cop to come in and say, hey, what's going on? Your numbers have been red for 4 weeks in a row here, or talk to me. And so Steve comes in and he can play that role, and I can go back to my, working on special projects or visionary type of things, which I love. So
was that hard for you to do that? Because you let go of some of the reins a little bit.
Yeah, it honestly wasn't.
It wasn't.
No, I've always been pretty good at delegating, and I mean, we've got a team of 15 people, so I've delegated a lot over the last 6 or 7 years to a lot of different people. So at first it was a little bit more difficult, for sure, because you always feel like you can do something better than anybody else, because you probably, in a sense, you can, but if somebody else can come in and do 80% as good, and you do that 5 or 6 different times, then you've all of a sudden, you're accomplishing a lot more. So
interesting. Yeah. So I love that. Yeah. So any other discoveries in the systems wise with the company that was a breakthrough?
So it continues to break down, like you have your issues, and then you really dig into discover, like talking about what is the real problem here, and then you try to solve that and then be done with it and move on to the next issue. Because if you just discuss and discuss and discuss, you're never really solving problems and gaining any traction. That's why they call it traction. So, so you'll turn issues into smaller to-dos, which are typically something that one person can do in an hour or less, and then that goes on somebody's list. And then at the end of each level 10 meeting, each person will have several new to-dos, and then by a week later, those to-dos should go to done, off the list.
So it's like a Scrum methodology type of system.
Yeah, we kind of meddled with Scrum a bit, but we've ran into some roadblocks with that, because that's more geared towards like coders,
software development.
Yeah. So.
But essentially, you have a more like to do, doing, done type of like board.
Yeah.
I like that. Joe, for this business, it seems like there's been upward trajectory, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's been a challenge or a roadblock that would be important for people to hear about? Maybe they will experience in their own business, or they are now.
Yeah. Well, boy, every day there's new challenges. So for us, like I've realized looking over the years, we've had to what's the word I'm looking for? Redefine ourselves or whatever each year, it seems like, because we were faced with new challenges. Like one year we lost our Google account and I couldn't advertise on Google anymore, like the blacklist. And so, but because of that, then we launched our joint venture affiliate program, and that like made up for that.
It creates an innovation because
right. Yeah. And then, so it's like every year, it's like we lose one thing and we gain another. So now we're doing a lot more on Facebook this year, and so it's just kind of ebbs and flows.
That's interesting. I like that, because that inflection, when something happens, it almost, again, like someone like you in that company rise to the occasion and you just figure it out. So like it turns into something that probably is better in the long run.
Right.
So there was the Google joint venture. What else? Where else did you see like an inflection of roadblock, but then it springs up?
Yeah. So something we face a lot now is the rising cost of advertising and increase in competition. And so when you look at your bottom line numbers, like for us, it's your visitor value, earnings per click, average order value, those types of things. We continually have to raise our numbers just to stay and compete and to be able to afford buying advertising. So that's like a constant shell game in some ways, and you have to comply with all sorts of other outside policies, and sometimes you don't even know what they are until after you've broken them, Yeah. And so reinventing ourselves, and a lot of times we can't come up with solutions at the time, so we have to look somewhere else. And one of my current challenges is like, when we launched Wholetones, one of the unintended consequences was our main ebook business with Barton Publishing sort of went like this. Took a nosedive, and philosophically the question was, did it take a nosedive because it was trending that way already, or did it take a nosedive because Wholetones now got all of our attention as a team?
Right. You were focused on Wholetones and not as much on the other thing.
Yeah, and so I think, it's like what came first, the chicken or the egg, and I'm pretty convinced that it was our focus, was taken away from the other ones. So now, like, our challenge is how can we stay focused on three different things and yet also have one coherent team? And so we're trying to segment that out into like, all right, this is a separate business. It's got a separate brand project manager, and that's all they're responsible for. And then this is a separate business, one person in charge, and same thing. And so eventually we could scale that, but now we're hitting like challenges in that regard, like how to actually do that on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. And and there's competition for who's competing for the copywriter's time, or who's competing for the operations team or the tech guys. And then it's like, and we have a budget for all this. Like, I only have so much money I can allocate to everything, and how am I gonna allocate that?
Right.
So, yeah.
The allocation of time and money.
Right.
But it sounds like you have the solution, which is like you're just gonna almost treat them as separate businesses instead of kind of it's all under one roof, even though it is, but they're all kind of separate.
Yeah, that's what we're doing right now. Just kind of getting started doing that now and building up to that. So.
I mean, it's a good problem to have because Wholetones obviously was wildly successful and is, so it makes sense to focus time and energy on that. But I could see how then the lack of energy or focus on something else, it's natural. It's a natural law.
And with Wholetones, I don't actually own that, so we have like an exclusive distributorship licensing agreement with that. And so that's another one of those things. Is like, if I owned Wholetones, if that was just my product, I would probably like launch that thing to another level. But at the same time, I have to kind of protect the business as a whole, and so
it's got to be diversified.
Hedge your bets, diversify a little bit. So we're actually launching a skincare company with with another lady who invented this really cool product. It's frequency-based skincare, and with like a magic wand type of a applicator type of thing that enhances the material or the ingredients, really reduces wrinkles. It's got a clinical trial behind it, so we're kind of doing that similar to how we did with Wholetones partnering. But I do have equity in that company too, so it's a little bit different.
Is it something you can talk about, or is it like still in the works?
Still in the works. We're just finalizing like the naming and the design. We are renaming it, but the old brand.
You're the marketer, so
yeah.
You're like, that's not going to cut it. We need to rename
Yeah,
this.
it's called True Energy Skincare, which it was okay, but it needed a redesign. Like the packaging itself wasn't great, so we're like, well, if we're going to redesign it, let's look at, can we improve the name itself too? So we're going with Resonate Beauty, which kind of, it's a beauty product, facelift product, and it, I hear people say, oh, that resonates with me all the time, and the word resonate actually has more to do with sound and sonic characteristics, and not like that resonates with me. But
that sounds like there's an application component to this. How do you decide on that? Was that just the best method to use it?
How did we decide on what?
Like to actually have an you said there was like a way to apply it as opposed to
Well, so Dr. Kathy, she's had this product already for years, and she was selling it she's got her own clinic, and she sells it to her patients already. So, and she's done some work. She actually worked with one of the former sharks from Shark Tank, and his brother. I think it is a long story, but they did a launch on TV, but they didn't talk about the resonating part, which was like the USP to it.
It's like Sonicare toothbrush, not talking about the like bubbles that get between the teeth. Yeah.
Exactly. Great point. So it didn't do good on their first go around, but we feel like this has got a lot going for it, and there's a lot of synergy with Wholetones and the frequencies, and seeing how that has really taken on, like the market has accepted that as true. So
that sounds like obviously Wholetones is resonate. The true definition, right?
Yeah, that is
a frequency.
Yeah,
that's awesome. Yeah, Joe, thanks for sharing that. So I have two last questions. Thank you first of all, this has been a blast. First I want to point people towards where they should check out more. We talked about Wholetones.com. Where else should we point people towards so they can find out?
Our main website is bartonpublishing.com. That lists all of our products. It has Wholetones.
Barton Publishing.
Yep. Right, yeah. And that'll list all of our current products, and then once we launch the Resonate Beauty, that'll be linked on from there as well. And people can join our mailing list if they want, which, if we got entrepreneurs listening, like, you can see kind of how we do things on a daily basis through our emails that, might be helpful. Yeah. It's not marketing related, but you can kind of like, work things backwards and see how we do it, working with partners and different products. So.
And everyone has family or friends who have health issues, so you should definitely check out, look at their site, and there's acid reflux, there's a natural brain, there's diabetes, there's blood pressure. Obviously, we talked about the Wholetones, and then there's a couple, the Remedy Library from Dr. Scott Sanders, the Rocket Fuel of Youth kit, ADD, ADHD solution kits. You have a bunch of really cool, and that's only like one page. There's like several pages of this stuff. So I encourage everyone to go on. And, for me, like I'm biased, like I like natural solutions to things when there's a time and a place for other stuff, of course, but when you can do a natural solution, that have the body heal itself, it's, I prefer that for sure.
Yeah. Most people do, especially entrepreneurs that think outside the box. So
So Joe, last two questions. And there's actually a Ladybug removal report too. So in case there's someone you want to be the one of the 3 purchases this year, you can purchase that. But, cholesterol.
Let's get that up to 10 this year, shall we? Come on.
Let's get it up to 10. I'm just going to buy 9 for you being on here.
Thank
you. Yeah. So, the cholesterol, depression. So, check it out. You have everything on here, actually. Fibromyalgia, flu.
Yeah, so the secret is buy one report and then go through our upsell funnel, and you can take the upsell for home cures that work. That'll give you access to every other report we have, all included. So that's the deal of the century right there.
That's awesome. You know, I as a kid, Joe, used to page through the book of home remedies. I don't know if you remember that.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't realize that was just an advertisement to buy more of their products. I just used that
Genius.
as
Yeah.
love that.
Yeah.
So last two questions, Joe. One, what's a big milestone you're especially proud of in the business? Like if you look back, you've been in this business for over a decade. What's something that makes you especially proud?
I would say just the longevity that we are still here after 13 years, because I've seen a lot of businesses and friends that have kind of come and gone, sadly. You know, like something will happen and they weren't able to weather the storm or whatever, just big challenges. So, just kind of a resilience, I would say, and able to adapt, I guess. And, you know, it's especially important to me as my four boys are all grown up, and my oldest is graduated high school this year. It's just to be able to see, like, I've been able to be here for them, going to all of their, school events and sporting events and home, you know, when they need whatever. They'll come in randomly, and I'm surprised they didn't come in and knock on the door.
We want them on the.
Yeah.
So what is he going to do after school? After high school?
My oldest is going to go down to ORU in Tulsa. So he's going to start in a business major. So he's actually my oldest two kids have an Amazon and an eBay business now selling Wholetones. So
that's awesome.
They're learning.
I was thinking, like, forget college, just like they have this thriving education, like with you. So what do you? I'm curious. What do you suggest? Obviously, you're an entrepreneur. You want them to be entrepreneurial and have kind of control of what they do. What do you what do you tell him now that he's off to college?
Yeah, so I tell them I want them to do what they feel like they're called to do or are gifted to do or whatever they're interested in. So like my oldest is very much like he's a social butterfly, very strong leader. Just everybody loves him, but he's he'll get up in front of people and talk and share things from his heart, and just an all around great guy. And so he's going to flourish in college. I know he'll connect there. My second oldest is he's like really smart, but he's not disciplined or organized, but he's like brilliant, and he's got a YouTube channel, ZMS Productions. He and his buddies will do these 5-minute videos, and very creative.
We'll have to link it up in the show notes. What's the link?
ZMS Productions on YouTube.
What is it? EMS or Z?
ZMS.
ZMS.
Yeah.
Oh.
It's 3 buddies, or he and his 2 buddies.
We'll have to link up ZMS Productions.
Yeah. So I could totally.
What kind of videos are there?
So he likes to go to thrift stores and find deals, and so they will have video of them going in, finding deals, and then using it, whether they buy a scooter or they'll buy a hat, or I don't know, just random. It's very random, and it's a bunch of, 15, 16-year-old boys just being boys.
So he's creative, the creative type.
Yeah. And I don't see him necessarily as a traditional going off to college, getting a degree type of thing. He'll probably go to college, but it'll be more for the other reasons, just social, because that's what everybody does type of thing. But I could see him totally coming up with the next, Facebook invention or something crazy, that we don't know.
Right.
Doesn't exist yet, but
he's creative. He'll think of something.
Yep, and it'll be because of his, willingness or preference to live outside the box and stuff like that.
Yeah. Love it. Yeah, thanks for sharing that. That's interesting. Because they grow up with you, and what your situation is non-traditional.
Right.
In a sense, right? So they don't. That's traditional to them. Like what you're doing is normal.
Right.
Right.
Good point.
As opposed to before, which is if they saw you in the accountant role.
Yeah.
Like what they see for you is that's their normal world.
Right.
Right. So I'm really curious of what their perception of the world is different from probably most people.
Yeah.
Right.
It's I think through their friends, and they hang out with their friends and see their families, and they realize like what normal probably looks like to most people, for the most part. And so I think they've got a pretty good understanding that we're non-traditional and this isn't normal, but it opens up the world of opportunities for what can be done, and sometimes like people don't want this type of lifestyle because it's a lot of risk taking and unknowns, uncertainties, and which is fine. Some people just aren't wired that way.
Yeah. So last question, Joe, is you have a really a cause that you are is close to your heart with foster children.
Yep.
Can you talk about what that is and what that looks like in your world?
Yeah. Thanks for asking. So 5 years ago, my wife became the director of Royal Family Kids Camp in South Dakota, it's a nationwide organization based out of California. They started 25 years ago. And basically, it's a bunch of volunteers that get together and host like a week of summer camp for foster kids and foster kids. And so like
all over, like just in that area, or how does that?
Yeah. So for us, like her camp had 52 kids last year, ages 6 to 12, and we stay. They do it up at a camp on a lake, and it's 75 adult volunteers that are all pre-screened and all that. And but we they do crafts, games, eat meals with them, and the whole goal of that week is just to let them have fun and be a kid and not have a worry in the world, because it's completely opposite of what their normal life is. And it's kind of heart-wrenching on Friday when you have to say goodbye, and some of these kids are going back to some hard situations where they're living with foster parents.
Can you talk about that? Like, I mean, you've experienced that, but what would be like a situation that, because you've probably heard all sorts of stories, right, of what their actual situation they're going back to. What's that look like, to give some perspective?
So these are kids that a lot of them have gone through sexual abuse, physical abuse, neglect. A lot of them would have parents that are drug addicts, alcoholics, that just aren't good parents at all, and make bad choices, and then their kids face a situation where things escalate, and then the cops come and take them, and they get put into a home, basically. So.
Yeah. And then how old are the kids at the camp?
At the camp, they're ages 6 to 12. Yeah. And then we founded a new organization called Fostering Hope. It's fosteringhope.sd.org. And that was to create, a couple different purposes. One is we put together the funding to buy a camp so that we can host these camps.
That's awesome.
And
that's Fostering Hope SD, like South Dakota.org.
Yeah. Okay. Right. Yeah. But we also created a couple new programs to help the kids after they are outside of that week of camp. So there's 3 different programs. One of them is to do like a quarterly reunion where we get all the kids together, play games, kind of just reconnect, so it's not just once a year. And then the other thing we have is a mentoring program. So after somebody is 12, they graduate from the week-long Royal Family Kids Camp. But now what are we going to do with them after that is what we're trying to answer. And that's where we do mentorship.
Because you just don't want to send them home and be like, okay, like, here's a week, like, good luck with your life type of thing.
Yeah. I mean, that program alone does change people tremendously, but then to be able to support them with like life skills, like we'll do like a weekend retreat with them where some of their adult leaders will come and just kind of spend time, teaching them like, here's how you manage your finances, or here's how you cook, or here's how you talk about different issues that maybe a dad would talk to them about. They don't have a dad in their life, so that type of thing. So it's really kind of like a brother program in some ways.
That's amazing. Yeah, I mean, just every little step helps a tremendous amount. I'm sure. Yeah. What situation do they go back to? Like, some of them have to go back to the normal situation, or do they go back to like a foster home, or?
I would say the majority are actually half of them get adopted into good homes, which is great. The The other half are kind of either bouncing back and forth between foster home and their own birth parents,
Yeah.
or they might be in like with grandpa and grandma or aunt and uncle, something
Some
like that.
family member, yeah.
Yeah, it's usually not a horrible situation by any means.
Yeah, but I mean, those kids sustain a lot of trauma, and that trauma is tough for the rest of their life sometimes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a lot of things that, when you see something, it's really hard to unsee it, and especially with sexual abuse, things like that. Like, we just hear some horrific stories that just breaks your heart.
It's
so,
horrible.
Yeah.
So, people can check out fosteringhope.sd.org. Yeah, Joe, thanks for sharing that. I just saw the movie Lion. I don't know if you've heard of it or seen it, but it reminded me.
I haven't seen it yet.
It's, yeah, I mean, it kind of shows some of the crazy things that happen when kids don't have the proper home life situation. They get put in situations that they shouldn't be put in at a young age. So,
yeah.
But you've seen it real up close and personal with these camps. So, is there any way people, if they want to help contribute or help in any way, I don't know, when they go to fosteringhope.sd.org, what?
Yeah, they can go there if they want to make like a financial donation. We're always looking for help, and that money gets put to help these kids develop the programs, help support the camp, things like that. Yeah, that's great. And I'll just say, like, to have a bigger purpose as an entrepreneur, I think is a big difference, and it's another reason to drive you.
It's a huge why. Yeah.
Yeah. And it goes beyond, we still feel like we're making a big difference with our products, but to be able to go, in a different capacity, and it just like it's a community coming together, and it just has like a higher purpose that drives you in a different way. So.
Is it something you do every year? Like, are you actually, or do you get a bunch of volunteers there, or how does that work?
So as the husband of the director of the camp, you can imagine that she puts me to work, and so I've been like a guide to the kids in the past, where there would be one guide with 2 kids. It's a small ratio. I've also done like the music ministry part of it, and I've worked in the activity center doing crafts, making duct tape wallets, just hanging out, playing Legos with the kids, whatever's needed. So
yeah. Do they only allow adults to volunteer, or do your boys sometimes?
16 and up. Yeah. So
okay.
my oldest son has done it twice now, and then our next oldest will be doing it for the first time this year. So yeah, it's cool. It's really like my favorite week of the year. It's hard because it's 24/7 nonstop, go, but it's so rewarding and fulfilling to see the kids just be kids, and you're making a big impact on them. So yeah. It's cool.
Joe, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Everyone should check out bartonpublishing.com or wholetones.com or fosteringhope.sd.org. So
awesome.
Thanks, Joe.
This has been great. Thank you, Jeremy.
Yeah.
All right.
What I got, you can't buy. It resides between my eyes. Walked through the fire, came out better on the other side.